Boys and girls, welcome to Holy Week. We started Holy Week on Sunday with Palm Sunday, and we are working through the week, and there's special events that we celebrate during Holy Week. So I thought maybe I would read a couple of different versions of the story actually that actually occurred. I had a hard time making it a choice though, because I have this book which has some really nice details in it. I have this book, and that's got some very interesting illustrations. You can see that Jesus is shown a little bit differently there. I have a book that I bought at the store, and looked like it was a very nice book. It even had the main idea on the back. Had some great pictures. I even found a Berenstain Bear, my Berenstain Bear Bible book, which sounds a little bit silly because the Berenstain Bears are fictional, but the story in that book and the story in this book and some of the details in the other books are real. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read kind of a collection, a little combination of the different versions and show you some different pictures. I'm going to start today with entering into Jerusalem, which was Palm Sunday. And then when we get to the Last Supper, which we typically celebrate on Maundy, Thursday, I'm going to read that portion and then I'm going to stop. And then later on in the week, we'll pick it up from there. What happens in the Garden of Gethsemane, what happens on Good Friday, and then what happens on Glorious Easter Day. So we're just going to read part of it today, and then we're going to finish it off the rest of the week, later on in the week. So, entering into Jerusalem, Jesus rode into Jerusalem on a young donkey. The people were spreading branches and cloaks on the ground like a carpet for a king. The crowds were waving branches and welcoming Jesus. Hooray for God's helper, God's special king. They cheered. Who is this man? People said. He's Jesus, God's messenger, the crowds replied. And we all know that they all said, Hosanna. Now see, that's not written in there, but it's written in one of my other versions. So that's why I'm having a combination here. So there they are. They are right. He's riding into Jerusalem on a donkey. They're waving their palm branches, Hosanna, and maybe you even made palm branches in your home for Palm Sunday. That's why we call it Palm Sunday. Here's another version. This is why I'm flipping it to a different book. And there's my picture of the Berenstain Bears. Now, it's kind of silly to see the Berenstain Bears but in this version, but they're actually acting out the story of the Passion of Christ. So this is what this book says. The leaders of the city grew worried. They did not like it when the people were calling Jesus the king. They already had a ruler of their land. They thought Jesus was going to cause some trouble. They thought that made them angry, and they thought that he was going to be a king of their land and not the king, of the kingdom of heaven. They thought he was going to be a man maybe that would be a real king with a crown, with a robe, maybe live in the palace, take over for the king that they already had. So they were a little bit nervous about that. So those little details were not in the book that I read first. Here's another picture of what Jesus looked like when he walked into Jerusalem. See, there's just a little bit of narration there. Hosanna to our King. So you see why I had to use a couple different versions here. Well, later on in the week, they decided to celebrate the Passover. And so they typically would have a dinner, and we're going to read about that in a minute. But before they had dinner, Jesus decided to do something very interesting that typically a person, if you were going to visit somebody's home, maybe a person like a servant or somebody would come and wash your feet, because people in those days walked around in sandals. You can see their sandals, and their feet got a little dusty. And so if you came to somebody's house, you might have your feet washed by somebody, and that would be an act of service to you. Well, interestingly, one evening during the supper, Jesus got up and he decided to do that for his disciples. He tied a towel around his waist and began to wash their feet. And they were shocked, because this was a servant's job. And this is their Jesus. And Jesus is washing their feet. And look at the expressions on their face. They are quite shocked, quite surprised. Jesus, you mustn't wash our feet, Peter said. I am washing your feet because I love you. and now you copy me and love and help one another. So he was setting an example for his disciples, and he sets that example for us too. We are to try our best to serve others. And that was what he was trying to explain to his disciples. You serve others. Let's see if there's another picture here of him washing the feet. Oh, here it is. See why I have to flip back and forth? There they are. They're getting ready to eat dinner, but there's Jesus washing his disciples' feet. So then they got ready for dinner. And they had a special meal in honor of the Passover. They were eating a special meal together when he took some bread and he thanked God and he broke it into pieces and he handed the bread around and he said, "This is my body, I give it for you." And then he took the cup of wine and he thanked God and he passed that around and he said, "Drink it. I will die for many people because God has promised to forgive them." And there they are. They're listening to his words. They're kind of surprised. They're not understanding what he means by I will die for many people. And he's not really understanding that. Here's another picture. And this was the feast of the Passover when Jesus was in Jerusalem. That was a holiday when Jewish people remembered when Moses led the people out of Egypt. See, there's some extra details that I didn't have in that other story. That's why I wanted to read a couple of versions. Jesus and his disciples had Passover supper in Jerusalem just like everybody else. And there they are, sitting at a table, all of his disciples. Here is another picture. And there they are sitting. And they are eating. They are going to eat their dinner together. And they're still quite surprised that he's washing their feet. So we are going to stop for today. And we're going to pick it up in a couple of days when we talk about Jesus praying in the Garden of Gethsemane and some of the events that happen after that. Okay, God bless your day. Bye-bye for now.